The envelope felt heavier than it should have as I placed it on the gift table at my in-laws' 30th wedding anniversary party. Patricia, my mother-in-law, picked it up between two fingers like it might contaminate her manicured nails. She held it up to the light streaming through the crystal chandelier in their Bellevue estate, then turned to her daughter, my sister-in-law Vanessa. "A card," Patricia announced, loud enough for the guests at the nearby tables to hear. "How practical." Vanessa leaned in, her diamond bracelet catching the light. "At least it's not another candle from HomeGoods like last year." They laughed. Not the polite social laugh you use at parties, but the kind that's meant to cut. I stood 3 feet away, still holding my clutch, my husband James nowhere to be found. He disappeared to the bar the moment we arrived, leaving me to navigate his family alone. Again. Patricia placed the envelope at the bottom of the gift pile, underneath the wrapped boxes with elaborate bows and designer gift bags stuffed with tissue paper. She smoothed her silver dress and returned to greeting guests as if I'd already ceased to exist. "My name is Rachel Chin. I'm 31 years old, and I've been married to James Whitmore for 3 years." That night, standing in the ballroom of the Four Seasons, watching my mother-in-law dismiss my gift without opening it, I realized something I'd been avoiding for a long time. This family had never seen me as anything more than the woman who wasn't good enough for their son. I'd met James 5 years ago at a tech conference in San Francisco. He was a project manager at a software startup. I was a senior data analyst at a financial firm, the kind of place where I spent my days finding patterns in numbers that other people missed. We bonded over terrible conference coffee and a shared hatred of networking events. He seemed different from the men I usually met in Seattle's tech scene. Thoughtful. Present. Real. His family was different, too. But not in the way I'd hoped. The first time James brought me home to meet his parents, Patricia had greeted me at the door of their lakefront home wearing cream-colored linen that probably cost more than my monthly rent. She'd looked at my Target dress and sensible flats with an expression I'd come to know well. Not quite disgust, but close. Disappointment, maybe. The kind reserved for someone who should have known better. "So you're the accountant," she'd said, extending a limp hand. "Data analyst," I'd corrected. "Oh." She'd turned to James. "I thought you said she worked with numbers." That should have been my first warning. Instead, I'd laughed it off, told myself she was just nervous about meeting her son's girlfriend, that we'd warm up to each other eventually. 3 years of marriage later, the temperature hadn't changed by a single degree. The anniversary party was exactly what I'd expected. 200 guests, a live orchestra, a 7-course meal that Patricia had spent months planning with the event coordinator, who probably made more than I did. The guest list read like a who's who of Seattle's business elite. Vanessa's husband, Todd, ran a commercial real estate firm. James's older brother, Marcus, was a cardiologist at Swedish Medical Center. Even James's cousin, who nobody really liked, had somehow become a successful personal injury attorney. And then there was me, the data analyst. The girl from the suburbs who'd worked her way through University of Washington on scholarships and part-time jobs. The one who didn't summer in the San Juan Islands or winter in Aspen. The one whose parents owned a small restaurant in the International District instead of a portfolio of investment properties. I found my assigned seat at table 12, far from the family table where Patricia and Richard held court. James was already there, his tie loosened, nursing what looked like his third whiskey. "Did you say hi to my parents?" he asked, not quite meeting my eyes. "I gave them their gift. The cash thing. The envelope." He winced. "Rachel, I told you my mom prefers actual presents. Something she can display. Your parents don't need another crystal vase." "It's not about need. It's about the gesture." I wanted to tell him that my gesture was just fine. That what was inside that envelope was more than a gesture. But the appetizers were being served, and James had already turned to talk to his college roommate at the next table, leaving me to make small talk with strangers who kept asking what I did and then losing interest the moment I answered. Halfway through the main course, Patricia stood to give a speech. She talked about 30 years of marriage, about building a life together, about family being the foundation of everything worthwhile. She thanked each of her children individually. She mentioned Marcus's recent promotion. She praised Vanessa's charity work. She even acknowledged Todd's business success. She didn't mention me at all. James didn't seem to notice. He was on his phone, probably responding to work emails, his fork moving absently from plate to mouth. Around us, guests dabbed at their eyes with linen napkins, moved by Patricia's words about love and commitment and the importance of family. I felt my phone buzz in my clutch. A text from my younger sister, Maya. "How's the party? Has Ice Queen warmed up yet?" I typed back, "Penguins would feel overdressed." If you've ever been in a family situation where you know you're being judged, where you can feel the weight of someone's disappointment in you without them saying a word, you'll understand why this moment mattered to me. It wasn't just about the gift. It was about 3 years of trying to prove I belonged, 3 years of being found wanting, 3 years of watching my husband do nothing while his family treated me like an unfortunate mistake he'd made one weekend and then refused to correct. After dinner, the gift opening began. Patricia had arranged a small area near the dance floor with 2 chairs where she and Richard could sit while Vanessa presented each gift and read the cards aloud. It was orchestrated like a production, each gift carefully selected to build to some kind of emotional crescendo. Marcus and his wife had given them a weekend at a spa resort in Victoria. Patricia clutched the card to her chest and kissed them both. Todd and Vanessa had commissioned a portrait of the family, oil on canvas, to hang in the living room. Patricia actually cried. The gifts continued. Wine from Napa. Tickets to the symphony. A donation made in their name to Patricia's favorite charity. Each one was greeted with genuine emotion, with hugs and photographs and commentary about how thoughtful, how perfect, how meaningful. My envelope remained at the bottom of the pile. James leaned over. "When do you think they'll get to ours?" "Last, probably." "Come on, don't be like that." I turned to look at him. Really look at him. At the man I'd married, who'd promised me we were a team, who'd assured me his family would come around eventually. His face was flushed from the whiskey, his eyes slightly unfocused. He wasn't going to defend me tonight. He never did. Finally, after 45 minutes of gift opening, Vanessa picked up our envelope. She turned it over, saw our names written on the front, and glanced at her mother. Something passed between them. Some shared understanding I wasn't privy to. "This is from James and Rachel," Vanessa announced, her voice flat. Patricia took the envelope and opened it slowly, as if whatever was inside might be contagious. She pulled out the card, a simple ivory one with "Happy Anniversary" embossed on the front. No glitter, no elaborate design. Just elegant simplicity. She read the printed message inside, then flipped the card over, looking for something more. Finding nothing, she opened the small folded paper that had been tucked inside the card. The expression on her face changed. Not dramatically. Just a subtle shift, like someone had adjusted the lighting. Her eyebrows rose slightly. Her lips parted. She looked at the paper again, then up at me. Richard leaned over to see what she was holding. His reaction was more obvious. His eyes widened. He sat back in his chair. "What is it?" Vanessa asked, trying to peer at the paper. Patricia didn't answer immediately. She refolded the paper with careful precision and placed it back in the envelope. The ballroom had gone quiet. 200 guests waiting to see what the last gift was, what could possibly follow the portrait and the spa weekend and the symphony tickets. "It's a very generous gift," Patricia finally said, her voice controlled. "Very generous indeed." She didn't elaborate. Didn't read it aloud like she had with the other cards. Didn't hold it up for guests to see. She simply set the envelope on the table beside her and gestured for the orchestra to resume playing. Vanessa looked confused. Marcus craned his neck to see. Even James sat up straighter, suddenly more alert. "What did you give them?" he whispered. "What we discussed," I said. "The cash? How much?" I didn't answer. Around us, guests were returning to their conversations, the moment passing without the explanation everyone clearly wanted. But I watched Patricia and Richard, saw them lean together, saw Richard pick up the envelope again and look inside, saw the way his jaw tightened. The rest of the evening blurred. There was cake, more dancing, the inevitable photo sessions where Patricia positioned her family just so, making sure everyone looked perfect for the camera. I stayed at our table, finishing my wine, checking my phone, waiting for the moment when I could reasonably suggest we leave. James came back from talking to his brother, his face flushed. Marcus said Mom looked shocked. What was in that envelope? A gift. Rachel, come on. People are talking. Let them talk. My mother deserves to know. She knows, I interrupted. She opened it. That's more than she's done with anything else I've given her. We drove home in silence, the Seattle skyline glittering across Lake Washington. James kept glancing at me, opening his mouth to say something, then changing his mind. We'd been married long enough that I could read his moods. He was torn between curiosity and loyalty, between wanting to know what I'd done and not wanting to side against his mother. It was just money, I finally said as we pulled into our apartment complex parking garage. A check. How much? Enough. Rachel. $50,000. He slammed on the brakes so hard my seatbelt locked. We were already in our parking spot, but the sudden stop sent my purse sliding off my lap onto the floor. You gave my parents $50,000? We gave them $50,000. It's from both of us. Where did you get $50,000? I unbuckled my seatbelt and picked up my purse. I've been saving for a long time. From what? Your salary? Rachel, your salary doesn't. He stopped himself, but the damage was done. In his mind, my salary as a data analyst couldn't possibly support that kind of gift. He was doing the math, trying to figure out where the money came from, how I could have saved that much without him knowing. I've been working in finance for 9 years, I said quietly. I know how to save money. And I know how to invest it. I got out of the car and walked to the elevator, leaving him sitting there with the engine still running. Inside our apartment, I kicked off my heels and went straight to the bedroom. My phone was already buzzing with texts. Maya, how'd it go? My mother, did they like the gift? And then, unexpectedly, a number I didn't recognize. This is Patricia. We need to talk. Tomorrow. 2 p.m. Our house. I stared at that message for a long time. Not a request. A summons. The same tone she used with service staff, with people she considered beneath her. Tomorrow. Our house. As if I had no choice but to comply. James came in, his tie now completely removed, his shirt untucked. We need to talk about this. Your mother wants to talk tomorrow. I know. She texted me too. Did she order you to be there? She asked me to come. There's a difference. Is there? He sat on the edge of the bed, running his hands through his hair. Rachel, I don't understand. Why would you give them that much money? We've been saving for a house. We've been talking about having kids. That money could have gone toward our future. It did go toward our future. How? How does giving my parents $50,000 help us? I turned to face him. Because I'm tired of being treated like I don't belong. Like I'm not good enough. Like I'm some charity case you brought home that your family has to tolerate. I wanted to show them that I'm not what they think I am. By throwing money at them? By being generous on a scale they understand. Your family measures worth in dollars and social connections. I just spoke their language. That's not fair. Isn't it? When's the last time your mother asked about my job? When's the last time she asked about anything in my life? She knows more about her hairdresser than she knows about me. James stood up, pacing. She's trying. She's set in her ways, but she's trying. She called me the accountant again last month. It's just a mistake. It's been 3 years. At some point, mistakes become choices. He left the room. I heard him in the kitchen, opening cabinets, the familiar clink of glass that meant he was pouring another drink. I changed into my pajamas and lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, wondering what tomorrow would bring. The Whitmore house looked different in daylight. Less imposing somehow, just another expensive piece of real estate on a street full of them. I parked my car on the street, not in their circular driveway. A small act of independence that probably only mattered to me. Patricia answered the door herself, no housekeeper. She was dressed casually, or what passed for casual in her world. Pressed linen pants, a silk blouse, pearls. Her hair was perfect. Her makeup subtle but deliberate. Come in, she said. Not warm, but not actively hostile either. James's car was already in the driveway. He'd left that morning before I woke up, sending only a text that said he'd see me there. Clearly, There had been a pre-meeting meeting. A strategy session. The family closing ranks. I followed Patricia through the house to the sunroom overlooking the lake. Richard was there, sitting in his usual chair with the newspaper folded on his lap. James stood by the window, hands in his pockets. Marcus sat on the sofa, which surprised me. I hadn't expected an audience. Sit, Patricia gestured to the remaining chair, positioned so I'd be facing all of them. I sat, crossed my legs, placed my hands in my lap. Everything about my posture was open, calm, unfazed. My therapist would have been proud. 3 months of sessions learning how to sit with discomfort, how to not absorb other people's emotions, how to maintain boundaries even in hostile territory. Patricia settled into her chair. I'll get straight to the point. The check you gave us last night. The anniversary gift, I clarified. Yes. Where did that money come from? My savings. Your savings. She said it like I'd claimed the money came from Mars. I've been employed full-time since I graduated from college 9 years ago. I live below my means. I invest wisely. The money is mine. Richard leaned forward. Rachel, understand, we're not accusing you of anything. We just need to understand the situation. What situation? A data analyst doesn't typically have $50,000 lying around, Marcus interjected. I turned to look at him. A data analyst at a major financial firm, with no student loans, no car payment, and a modest lifestyle absolutely can save that amount over 9 years. Especially one who understands compound interest and diversified investment portfolios. James said you've been talking about buying a house, Patricia said. Why would you give us money you need for your own future? I gave you money because it was your anniversary. Because I wanted to give you something meaningful. Because unlike the crystal vases and picture frames you already have 50 of, this was something that might actually matter. The room went quiet. James shifted uncomfortably by the window. Marcus studied his shoes. Richard cleared his throat. Patricia's voice, when she spoke again, was softer. It's too much. It's exactly what I intended to give. We can't accept it. You already did. The check has been deposited. I got the notification this morning. I watched Patricia's face carefully. She glanced at Richard, who had the grace to look embarrassed. They'd deposited it first thing that morning, probably the moment the bank opened, before calling this meeting. Before pretending they couldn't accept it. We can write you a new check, Patricia said. You could. But you won't. Rachel, James started. No. I stood up. I'm done with this. I gave you a gift. A generous gift. The exact same kind of gift your other children give you. Money for experiences, for things you want. But because it came from me, you need to interrogate it. You need to make sure I haven't done something wrong. You need to put me in this room and question where I got the money, as if I couldn't possibly have earned it myself. That's not what this is, Patricia said. Then what is it? Silence. Marcus looked at his mother. James looked at the floor. Richard folded and unfolded his newspaper. I've been part of this family for 3 years, I continued, my voice steady. 3 years of being called the wrong job title. 3 years of being seated at the back tables at family events. 3 years of watching you light up when Marcus talks about his work or when Vanessa shows you her charity photos, and then watching your face go blank when James mentions something I've done. 3 years of being tolerated instead of welcomed. Rachel, I think you're being oversensitive, Patricia said. Am I? When's my birthday, Patricia? She blinked. What company do I work for? You work with numbers, I know that. Where did I grow up? Nothing. She had no answers. 3 years, and she couldn't answer basic questions about my life. I gave you $50,000, I said, because I thought maybe if I spoke your language, if I showed you I was capable of the kind of generosity you value, you might finally see me as something other than the girl who wasn't good enough for your son. But this meeting tells me everything I need to know. The problem was never the size of the gifts or the brand of the presents. The problem is that they came from me. I picked up my purse. James stepped away from the window. Rachel, wait. For what? For your mother to pretend she cares? For your family to finally admit that nothing I do will ever be good enough? I looked at Patricia. Keep the money. Buy something nice. But don't pretend this was about the amount or where it came from. You cashed it the second you could because you wanted it. You just didn't want to admit that I could give it to you. I walked out of the sunroom, through the house, past the family photos on the walls where my face appeared in exactly 3 pictures out of hundreds. James followed me to the front door. "Don't leave like this," he said. "Like what? With dignity? With my self-respect intact. My family is trying. Your family deposited my check before questioning where it came from. They took the money and then implied I'd done something suspicious to get it. That's not trying. That's taking and then finding fault with the giver." I opened the door. The afternoon sun was bright, almost blinding after the dim interior of the house. "Rachel, please. Let's talk about this at home. I'm going to my parents' restaurant. I need to be around people who actually value me." I drove south, toward the International District, toward the small storefront where my parents had built their business from nothing. The lunch rush was ending when I arrived. My mother was at the register, my father visible through the kitchen window. They'd been doing this for 30 years, serving food to people who appreciated it, never once making someone feel less than for not understanding the menu or for ordering the wrong thing. My mother saw my face and came around the counter immediately. "What happened?" I told her. All of it. The gift, the summons, the interrogation. She listened without interrupting, the way she always did, the way she'd taught me to listen to other people's stories without rushing to fix them. When I finished, she was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "Did you give them the money because you wanted to, or because you wanted them to want you?" The question hit harder than anything Patricia had said. "I don't know," I admitted. "Then maybe that's what you need to figure out." My father brought out a bowl of soup without being asked. He set it in front of me, squeezed my shoulder, and went back to his kitchen. No questions. No judgment. Just soup, offered freely, because I was there, and I was his daughter, and that was enough. I ate the soup slowly, feeling my body relax for the first time in 24 hours. Around me, the familiar sounds of the restaurant, dishes clattering, voices speaking in Mandarin and English, and sometimes both in the same sentence, the smell of ginger and garlic and star anise. This was home. This small place where people worked hard and treated each other with respect and didn't need you to prove your worth with grand gestures. My phone buzzed. "James, where are you? We need to talk." I turned off my phone. 3 days later, I moved my things out of the apartment James and I shared. Not in anger, not in some dramatic explosion. Just quietly, while he was at work, taking what was mine and leaving what was his. I'd found a studio apartment in Capitol Hill, small but bright, with windows that faced east to catch the morning sun. The first person I told was Maya. She helped me carry boxes up 3 flights of stairs, never once asking if I was sure, never trying to talk me out of it. She understood. She'd been there the night I came home from meeting James's family for the first time, had seen my face and known without asking that it hadn't gone well. "You gave them 50 grand?" she asked, pausing on the second floor landing with a box of books. "I did. That's ice cold. I love it. It wasn't meant to be cold. But it was. You made them take money from someone they looked down on. You made them admit you have more than they thought. That's the most elegant revenge I've ever seen." But it hadn't been revenge. Not consciously. I genuinely wanted to give them something meaningful, something that would make them see me differently. The fact that it had also exposed their hypocrisy was almost accidental. Almost. The first week in my new apartment, I waited for James to call. To show up. To do something that indicated he was willing to fight for our marriage. Instead, I got a text from Vanessa. "Mom wants her anniversary gift returned." I didn't respond. Another text, this time from Marcus. "Be reasonable. That's a lot of money to just throw away." I blocked his number. Finally, James himself. "Can we please talk? This is crazy." I sent one message back. "I gave your parents a gift. They accepted it. They cashed it. What they do with the money is no longer my concern. What happens to our marriage is between you and me, not your family." His response came 3 hours later. "I need time to think." "Take all the time you need," I wrote back. I threw myself into work. The firm was in the middle of a major project, analyzing market trends for a new investment strategy. I spent 12-hour days building models, finding patterns, making predictions. My boss, Karen, noticed. "You're on fire lately," she said, stopping by my desk one evening when most of the office had cleared out. "Just focused. Everything okay at home?" I glanced up at her. Karen was 15 years older than me, divorced, remarried, divorced again. She understood complicated. "I left my husband," I said. "Recently?" "2 weeks ago." She nodded. "That explains the productivity spike. Channel it while you can. Heartbreak makes for excellent data analysis. All that emotional energy needs somewhere to go." She was right. I found mistakes in reports that 3 other analysts had missed. I identified an emerging market trend 2 months before our competitors. I built a predictive model that the senior partners actually called brilliant. Work became the place where my competence was never questioned, where my contributions were valued, where nobody asked me to prove I deserved to be there. The divorce papers arrived 6 weeks after I moved out. James had filed first, which shouldn't have surprised me but somehow did. The petition cited irreconcilable differences. No details. No drama. Just a legal dissolution of a marriage that had been dissolving for years. I signed them without contest. No fight over assets, no battle over who got what. We'd kept our finances mostly separate, a decision I'd insisted on early in our marriage that now seemed prescient. He could have the furniture, the apartment, the wedding gifts from his family. I took my clothes, my books, my grandmother's china that had never been good enough for Patricia's dinner parties anyway. The one thing I kept was a copy of the canceled check. $50,000 made out to Patricia and Richard Whitmore, with "Happy Anniversary" written in the memo line. I didn't frame it. I didn't do anything dramatic with it. I just kept it in my desk drawer, a reminder of the moment I'd stopped trying to buy belonging. 3 months after the anniversary party, I got promoted. Senior data analyst to associate director of quantitative research. It came with a substantial raise, my own office, and a team of analysts reporting to me. Karen announced it in a staff meeting, praising my recent work, my innovative approaches, my leadership potential. That evening, my mother called. "Your father and I want to take you to dinner." To celebrate. We went to a nice restaurant on Capitol Hill, the kind of place with cloth napkins and wine lists and waiters who describe each dish with reverent detail. My father ordered a bottle of champagne. "To Rachel," he said, raising his glass, "who has always known her worth, even when others couldn't see it." We drank. The champagne was good, though probably not as expensive as what Patricia would have ordered. But it tasted better somehow. Earned, not expected. "Did you hear?" my mother asked. Richard Whitmore had to sell one of his properties. Some investment that went bad. I hadn't heard. I'd blocked or muted everyone from that family, cutting off the pipeline of information that used to flow through James. "They're saying he lost quite a bit of money," she continued. "Apparently, he'd put a large sum into some development deal that fell through." I sipped my champagne and said nothing. If Richard had lost money on a bad investment, that was his problem. It had nothing to do with the gift I'd given them. Though I couldn't help wondering if they'd kept the $50,000 or if they'd used it to cover losses. Not that it mattered. The money was gone, given freely, with no strings attached. "Maya told me Patricia was at the restaurant last week," my mother added, her tone carefully neutral. "She asked how you were doing." "And what did you tell her?" "That you were thriving. Because you are." The divorce was finalized 4 months after the separation. No drama, no court appearance necessary. Just signatures and paperwork and a judge's stamp making official what had been true for much longer. I got the notification by email on a Tuesday morning while I was reviewing quarterly reports. I closed my laptop and sat for a moment, waiting to feel something. Sadness, maybe. Relief. Anger. Instead, I felt light. Like a weight I'd been carrying for 3 years had finally been lifted. That evening, I went to my pottery class. A hobby I'd picked up after the separation, something to do with my hands that wasn't work-related. The instructor was a woman in her 60s who'd been making ceramics for 40 years. She taught us to center the clay, to feel when it was balanced, to know when to add pressure and when to let the piece breathe. "You're getting better," she said, watching me shape a bowl on the wheel. More confident. Less afraid of making mistakes. The bowl wasn't perfect. One side was slightly higher than the other. The rim had a small wobble. But it was mine, created by my own hands, and it would hold water when I was done. That was enough. 6 months after the anniversary party, I ran into Vanessa at a coffee shop in Fremont. She saw me first, and I watched her face go through several expressions in quick succession. Surprise, discomfort, something that might have been guilt. "Rachel," she said. "Hi. Vanessa. How are you?" "Good." "You?" "Good." "Yeah, good." We stood there, two women who'd once been sisters-in-law, now just strangers making awkward small talk in a coffee shop line. She shifted her weight, clutching her designer purse. "I heard about your promotion," she said finally. "Congratulations." "Thank you. James is seeing someone new. I thought you should know. In case you ran into them or something." I nodded. It didn't hurt the way I thought it might. "I hope he's happy. Are you?" "Happy?" I thought about my small apartment with the morning sun. About my promotion and my team and the satisfaction of doing work that mattered. About pottery class and dinners with my parents and Maya's weekly texts that always made me laugh. About not having to prove anything to anyone anymore. "Yes," I said. "I really am." Vanessa nodded, blinking rapidly. "I'm glad. You deserve that." She got her coffee and left. I watched her go, this woman who'd laughed when her mother dismissed my gift, who'd participated in 3 years of subtle exclusion, who'd never once stood up for me when I was part of her family. I felt no anger toward her. No need for revenge or vindication. Just a quiet understanding that some people will never see you clearly, and that's their loss, not yours. A year after the anniversary party, I got an unexpected email. It was from Patricia. "Dear Rachel," it began. "I hope this message finds you well. I've been thinking about you lately and wanted to reach out. I wonder if you might be willing to meet for coffee. There are things I'd like to say that are better said in person. No pressure, of course. But if you're open to it, I'd appreciate the chance to speak with you. Sincerely, Patricia." I read it 3 times. Looked for the catch, the manipulation, the hidden agenda. Found nothing obvious. Just a simple request, almost humble in its phrasing. I didn't respond immediately. I sat with it for a week, asking myself what I wanted. Not what I should do, not what would be the mature thing, but what I actually wanted. Finally, I wrote back, "Patricia, thank you for reaching out. I'm willing to meet. How about next Thursday at 3 p.m. at the cafe on Pine Street near Pike Place Market?" She agreed. The cafe I chose was public, busy, the kind of place where serious conversations happened at small tables while tourists wandered past with shopping bags. Neutral territory. She arrived exactly on time, dressed simply, her hair less perfect than usual. She looked older somehow, or maybe just more real. She ordered tea. I ordered coffee. We sat. "Thank you for coming," she said. I waited. "I've been in therapy," she continued. "For several months now. Working through some things. And one of the things I've realized is that I was terrible to you. Not just at the anniversary party, but for years before that." I sipped my coffee. Still waiting. "I was threatened by you," she said, her voice low. "You were everything I'd wanted James to avoid. Independent. Strong. Not impressed by money or status. I thought if I kept you at a distance, if I made you feel like you didn't belong, you'd eventually leave and James would find someone more suitable. More controllable," I said. She flinched. "Yes. More controllable. Someone I could shape and influence. Someone who would defer to me the way I'd always deferred to Richard's mother." That must have been exhausting. Deferring. It was. And I think some part of me resented you for refusing to do the same. The cafe hummed around us. A espresso machine hissed. Someone laughed at a nearby table. Patricia twisted her wedding ring, a nervous gesture I'd never seen her make before. "The money you gave us," she said. "That gift. It forced me to see something I'd been avoiding. You were more capable, more generous, more secure in yourself than I'd ever allowed myself to believe. And instead of appreciating it, instead of admitting I'd been wrong about you, I made it into something suspicious. Something wrong. You deposited the check before you questioned where it came from," I said. "I know. Richard and I fought about that. He wanted to cash it immediately. I thought we should wait. We compromised by doing both, which just made us look greedy and judgmental. You were greedy and judgmental. She nodded. We were. And I'm sorry. I know that doesn't fix anything. I know you and James are divorced, and that's partly my fault for never accepting you. But I wanted you to know that I see it now. I see what I did. And I'm trying to be better. I finished my coffee. Set the cup down carefully. Thank you for telling me that. Is there anything I can do to make amends? No. Her face fell. Patricia, I don't need amends from you. I don't need you to fix the past or make up for how you treated me. What I needed was to be accepted for who I was when it mattered. That chance is gone. I understand. But I appreciate you being honest. That takes courage. We sat for a few more minutes. Not reconciling, not becoming friends, just two women who'd caused each other pain, acknowledging it plainly. When she stood to leave, she hesitated. The money, she said. We used it to help Marcus. He'd gotten into some debt. Medical school loans he'd been hiding. We paid them off with your gift. I thought you should know it went to family. I nodded. It didn't change anything, but there was something fitting about it. Money I'd given to prove I belonged, used to help someone who'd never questioned their place in the family. The irony wasn't lost on me. Take care of yourself, Patricia, I said. You too, Rachel. She walked out into the Seattle drizzle, pulling her coat tighter. I stayed at the table for a while longer, watching the rain streak down the window, thinking about how we spend so much energy trying to belong to places that were never meant to be home. My phone buzzed. Maya, dinner tonight? Mom's making dumplings. I'll be there, I typed back. That evening, I sat at my parents' kitchen table, the same table where I'd done homework as a child, where I'd told them I was getting married, where I'd cried the night I decided to leave. My father rolled dumpling wrappers while my mother shaped the filling, their movements synchronized from decades of working side by side. You're quiet tonight, my mother observed. I met with Patricia today. Her hands paused. And? She apologized. Said she was threatened by me. That she's in therapy now. How did that feel? I thought about it. Like closure I didn't know I needed. Not because the apology fixed anything, but because it confirmed that the problem was never actually about me. My father looked up from his dough. You know what the best revenge is? What? Being happy. Really happy. Not to spite them, just for yourself. He went back to his rolling. Such simple wisdom, delivered without ceremony, the way he did everything. I picked up a wrapper and started helping, the rhythm of fold and seal as familiar as breathing. 3 weeks later, I got a letter. Actual physical mail, handwritten on expensive stationery. The return address was the Whitmore house. Inside was a check. $50,000. Made out to me. The memo line read, with gratitude and regret. There was also a note from Richard. Rachel, Patricia told me about your conversation. I've been doing my own reflection. This money helped our family during a difficult time. That help came from you, even though we didn't deserve it. Even though we'd treated you poorly. I'm returning it not because the gift was wrong, but because accepting it while rejecting you is wrong. I hope you'll use it for something that brings you joy. Richard. I sat on my apartment floor, the check in one hand, the note in the other. Part of me wanted to tear it up. To prove I'd never needed their money or their approval. But that would have been ego talking. Pride trying to make a point that no longer needed making. Instead, I deposited the check. And then I made 3 decisions. First, I donated $20,000 to a scholarship fund for first-generation college students studying STEM fields. Students like I had been, working their way through school, wondering if they belonged in spaces that seemed designed for other people. Second, I put $20,000 toward a down payment on a small condo in Wallingford. Nothing extravagant. Just a place that was mine, with good light and a view of the Space Needle, where I could build the life I wanted without asking permission or proving worth. The remaining $10,000 I kept in savings. Emergency fund. Freedom fund. The cushion that meant I'd never have to stay anywhere I wasn't valued just because leaving felt financially risky. Karen called me into her office the following Monday. The partners want to talk to you about the director position that's opening up. Full director. Corner office. Substantial raise. You interested? Very. Good. You've earned it. Whatever was happening in your personal life this past year, it's made you sharper. More decisive. I don't know if I should thank your ex-husband or send him a sternly worded letter. I laughed. Neither. He did what he needed to do. So did I. The director position came through 6 weeks later. I moved into an office with windows on 2 sides, overlooking Elliott Bay. My team expanded to 12 analysts. My salary nearly doubled. I bought furniture I actually liked instead of whatever was on sale. I hung art on my walls. I adopted a cat from the shelter, a gray tabby who'd been there for months, because he was too old and too independent for most people's taste. I named him 50. My sister thought it was hilarious. 1 year after Patricia's apology, I was featured in Seattle Business Magazine. Rising stars in tech finance. They photographed me in my office, surrounded by monitors displaying data models, looking competent and confident and exactly like someone who belonged there. The article mentioned my recent promotion, my innovative work in predictive analytics, my leadership style that emphasized mentorship and collaboration. It did not mention my divorce. It did not mention the Whitmore family. It mentioned only what I'd built through my own skill and effort. My mother framed the magazine cover. It hung in the restaurant between a photo of my father receiving a community service award and Maya's college graduation portrait. Equal space. Equal pride. No one valued more or less. Just family simply displayed. I heard through Maya, who heard through a friend, who heard through someone else, that James had married the woman Vanessa mentioned. A lawyer from a family the Whitmores approved of. Someone who summered in the right places and knew the right people and fit seamlessly into their world. I felt nothing but hope that she made him happy and that his family treated her better than they'd treated me. Sometimes I still thought about that anniversary party. About the envelope placed at the bottom of the gift pile. About the check I'd written, trying to prove something I'd never needed to prove. About how the hardest lesson to learn is that some people will never value you the way you deserve, and that's information, not failure. The $50,000 had traveled in a circle. Given, accepted, returned, redistributed. It wasn't about the money anymore, if it ever had been. It was about understanding that generosity shouldn't be a transaction. That love isn't something you purchase with grand gestures. That belonging isn't something you earn by meeting someone else's standards. I learned to make pottery that didn't wobble. I got promoted again. I dated occasionally, nothing serious, learning what I actually wanted instead of trying to fit into someone else's vision. I had dinner with my parents every Sunday. I met Maya for drinks every Thursday. I built a life that felt solid and real and entirely mine. 2 years after the divorce was finalized, I ran into James at a tech conference. We both stopped, surprised, then approached each other with the careful politeness of people who'd once mattered to each other and now didn't. Rachel, you look great. Thanks. You too. How's everything? Good. Really good. Married now. My wife's pregnant. Congratulations. That's wonderful. How about you? Seeing anyone? Not at the moment. Work keeps me busy. He nodded. Shifted his conference badge. I heard about your promotion. Director now. Senior director, actually. As of last month. Something crossed his face. Pride, maybe. Or regret. That's amazing. I always knew you were talented. Did you? The question hung between us. Not accusatory, just honest. I should have, he said quietly. I should have seen a lot of things I didn't see. We both made mistakes. Mine were worse. I let my family treat you badly. I didn't stand up for you. I didn't choose you over their approval. I'm sorry for that. I nodded. The apology was real, I could tell. But it came too late to change anything, and we both knew it. I hope you're happy, James. I'm getting there. I hope you are too. I am. And I meant it. Standing there in the conference center, talking to the man I'd once loved, once married, once tried so hard to belong to, I felt nothing but gratitude that I'd been brave enough to leave. That I'd chosen myself over acceptance. That I'd learned the difference between being valued and being tolerated. We said goodbye. He headed toward one conference room. I headed toward another. Our paths diverging completely, the way they probably should have from the start. That evening, I video called Maya from my hotel room. She was in her apartment in Portland, where she'd moved for graduate school, studying to be a therapist. Guess who I ran into? I said. James. How did you know? You have that look. The one you get when you're processing something. I told her about the conversation. About his apology. About feeling nothing but peace. That's growth, she said. The fact that you can see him and not feel angry or hurt or like you need anything from him. That's real healing. When did you get so wise? I've always been wise. You just weren't ready to listen. We laughed. Talked about her classes, about mom and dad, about the restaurant's new menu. Normal sibling conversation. Easy and comfortable and not about my worth or my choices or whether I belonged. After we hung up, I opened my laptop and looked at the email I'd been drafting for days. A message to the woman who ran the scholarship fund I donated to, offering to be a mentor for students in the program. To share my story. To help someone else understand that their value isn't determined by who accepts them, but by who they become when they stop seeking acceptance. I hit send. If stories like this feel familiar, you're not alone. Sometimes the people who should see us most clearly are the ones who can't see us at all. And sometimes the greatest gift we can give ourselves is the freedom to stop trying to change their vision. 3 years after that anniversary party, after the gift that was meant to prove belonging and ended up proving something else entirely, I stood in my condo looking out at the Seattle skyline. The city lights reflected off the water. The Space Needle glowed against the night sky. Somewhere out there, the Whitmore family was having dinner at their lakefront house, living their lives according to rules I no longer needed to follow. 50, my cat, wound between my ankles. My laptop sat on the coffee table, closed for the night, work finished. Tomorrow, I'd go back to the office, lead my team, build models that predicted human behavior through mathematics. But tonight, I just stood at the window, drinking tea from a mug I'd made in pottery class, uneven and imperfect and exactly what I needed. My phone buzzed. A text from one of the scholarship students I'd been mentoring, a young woman studying computer science at UW. I got the internship. They said my interview was one of the best they'd seen. Thank you for helping me prepare. I smiled and typed back, you did that yourself. I just reminded you of what you already knew. But I understood what she meant. Sometimes we need someone to reflect back our own worth until we can see it ourselves. Someone to say, without qualification or condition, that we're enough exactly as we are. I'd spent 3 years trying to be enough for a family that would never see me clearly. And in leaving, in choosing myself, I'd finally understood that I'd been enough all along. The problem was never my value. The problem was trying to get people who couldn't see clearly to validate what was always true. The $50,000 had been a gift. Not to the Whitmores, though they'd received it. But to myself. A final gesture of generosity toward people who didn't deserve it that freed me from ever needing their approval again. Because once you've given everything and walked away, there's nothing left to prove. No more trying. No more performing. Just the quiet dignity of knowing your worth and refusing to accept less. I finished my tea and rinsed the mug in the sink. Outside my window, Seattle hummed with life, with possibility, with other people's stories unfolding in apartments and houses and restaurant booths across the city. Stories of belonging and rejection, of family and chosen family, of learning that sometimes the best gift you can give is the one you give yourself. Permission to leave. Permission to stop trying. Permission to build a life where you don't need permission. That was the real gift. And it had been worth every penny.